Hey everyone, my name is Eric Dominguez. I am a speaker, trainer, and consultant, and welcome to Stories That Speak Up, where I share research, resources, or great stories that can teach us a great deal about communication, confidence, and storytelling. And today I'm going to be talking about this book, Verbal Judo by George Thomson. Y'all, I have been reading and studying communication books for many years, and I am so sad that I just read this one. It is one of the most efficient, most effective books on communication, specifically conflict communication, that I've ever read. First of all, his story is awesome. He was a college professor. He taught rhetoric and persuasion. He was also a black belt in karate and judo. And he decided to change careers and become a full time police officer. And he openly admits that the best communication training, especially as it relates to conflict communication, came from his job as a police officer. He also makes a great parallel between martial arts and conflict conversations. His strategy is really aligned with judo. In judo, you take an opponent's attack and you use the energy that they are using to harm you, and you parry it to keep yourself safe. And it's the same concept that he establishes in this book, is that he understands that conflict is going to come, that people are going to sling things at you. And fighting back isn't always the best, most appropriate option. There is so much in this book that I can talk about, but I've narrowed it down to the top three lessons or the top three moments for me as I read Verbal Judo. The first one is this quotation: "We are forced to become persuaders, and no one is trained in that profession." This exemplifies my life's mission. Just because we can talk, just because we understand language and have the capacity to use it, doesn't mean that we always know the most effective way to communicate. It's like owning a guitar. Like, we can own a guitar for many years, but we don't quite know how to play the notes. This is exactly what he's commenting on here, is that too too seldom are we officially trained in communication, and most of those trainings, I say it and he says it, are really outdated and focus on completely the wrong element and the wrong intention. So that was the first thing that really struck at me and aligned with my mission and my message. The second lesson that really stood out to me is this. He says, "There are many ways to motivate a person, but there's only one underlying principle: raising expectations." Whew, this hit hard. You know, I know this inherently. This is how I coach my clients. This is how I raise our sons. This is how I do most of my life. But I need to push towards that. I need to push to raising the expectations of the people around me as well as with myself. As it relates to conflict conversations, he speaks that when we are slinging at each other, when we're just jabbing at each other with the intention of hurting and harming each other, that's not always going to lead to the best result. When you raise the expectations of the conversation and of the people having that conversation, that's when you get a win-win scenario. And there's a lot of different strategies and tools that he teaches to raise that expectation without doing so in a condescending manner. And the last lesson that I learned from this book, a phrase that has just been ringing in my head since I read it a few months ago, is this: "Don't give the greatest speech you'll ever live to regret." Don't give the greatest speech you'll ever live to regret. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm in a heated situation, when I'm in a conflict, either professionally or personally, I start to rehearse in my head all of the things that I would say to this person, all of the ways that I would say to this person. And I'm being totally honest, it very rarely supports them, right? It's much more of a jab. It's much more of cutting these people down and showing them how great I am. Now, he talks about this. He talks about the fact that he is a big guy and he is trained in martial arts and in self-defense with the police department. When somebody would come up to him and threaten him physically or verbally, he knew how to take them down. But that wasn't the best option. Those speeches we rehearse in our head to the people that are really bothering us, the worst thing that can happen is that we actually deliver that speech to them. Because when we deliver that speech to them and we harm them and hurt them, that's not going to be persuasive. That's not what's going to change their mind. And it is very, very, very challenging not to give that speech, but rather to shift your focus into a win-win scenario. Simple, but definitely not easy. If you want to know more, I'm telling you, pick up this book. It is a quick read. It is engaging. It is funny. It is interesting. He weaves all of the stories from teaching and being a police officer into his content. And it's a great way to support your speaking skills, especially conflict communication. I'm going to put a link to the book in the comments. I would love for you to pick it up and then come back and drop some comments into the chat. Tell me how you're experiencing the book. And if you've already read the book, I'd love to hear some of the lessons that you've learned and applied in verbal judo, in communicating with confidence and power and joy in a way that doesn't harm, but inevitably becomes a win-win for everyone. That is this week's story that speaks up, and I'm looking forward to our next time together. Take care.